So we're in the middle of an episode that we're referring to as career pathing, and what it really boils down to is how do you, as an emerging leader, pioneer your own path? How do you start to discover what you're passionate about, what you love to do, what you want to do, what you want to develop expertise in, and start to design a path inside of this gigantic industry that truly helps you to be significant, not just successful. The other part that we really want to tackle is if you're an existing leader trying to figure out how to maximize the potential of the people on your team, we hope that you're able to pick something up that allows you to better articulate to them what they could do, realize that they need your encouragement, and to direct them further down the path to truly maximize their experience with you as a leader and in your organization. Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm DeWayne Ables, founder and president of Pioneer IQ. I certainly hope over the next couple of minutes you're able to pick something up from Chris's journey that helps you better understand the possibilities for your journey, or to help you understand how to better articulate and navigate someone else's. Maybe that person's on your team, maybe there's someone you're mentoring, or maybe it's the kid down the street that's just looking for a leader in some direction. So Chris, thanks for jumping back into this episode with us. We ended up truly just wanting to have a conversation about your career. We thought it'd be a great episode, and as we started talking, it's turned into a series. As we started to look at your journey, right, and it really breaks down into three parts. Your high school and your internship and college years, and then this segment's really all about building your expertise, building your career. And then the third segment will ultimately be your direct impact on our industry now and what you're trying to do, which takes all of what you've learned and is starting to apply to something that's really significant. So one thing I'd like to jump into just a second to give everybody a little background is you and I have some really interesting history together. I guess we started working together, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago? And two things that are really significant to me is while we were working with Gordon and the executive team to design the vision, which took a lot of insights, it took a lot of time, but that team did such a great job of thinking outside the box. And as a big part of designing their purpose and vision, even in the visioning session, leaders started realizing that there's so many other parts and pieces of the industry that they wanted to begin integrating over the next 10, 15 years into JE Dunn. And it's really cool because I was facilitating those meetings, and as a part of that, it talked about integrating design and how that would truly impact the purpose statement and it truly impact the vision. And then, 3 years later, you and I got to work together.
So you're the reason I'm here. I had no idea.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far.
A long time ago.
No, but it is cool though. We didn't know what that person looked like, and now we do, right? Yeah. So that's a really fun part of what I get to do, and I appreciate that. And then secondly, you and I worked together on Ayanna and the aviation team, which she is a phenomenal leader. I don't know if you've met Ayanna. She's the leader of the aviation team. That is a phenomenal leader. She's a great woman. She's a passionate leader, truly loves her team.
A strong emerging leader in the industry.
No doubt.
So I knew her when I was on the design side as an aviation construction leader. And so we got connected through mutual industry acquaintance to be able to compare notes of, hey, here's what we're seeing for projects that are coming out on the design side. Here's what she was hearing on the construction side. Having that network and those relationships to be able to share information and test, hey, I'm hearing this project's coming out at this time, I'm hearing it's coming out there. Like having those touch points, I got to know her that way and got to see how she was visible in the industry. Yep. Then to come into JE Dunn and see the team that she was building and have an opportunity to sit down with you and her team to develop that strategy was like, oh, this is gold. This is getting in behind the curtain and seeing what I knew what the potential was with the market, and then seeing where she was going to take it and how she was going to build a plan to maximize the opportunities was fantastic.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. And then the second group that we got to work with was the industrial group with Brent Strength.
Yep.
He is fantastic leader, totally different type of leader, right?
Yep.
He's he's the kind of guy that genuinely loves people, but he's the kind of guy where you're like, if you're going to war, you hope he's in front of you, you know, kind of a guy.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because we were working with both those two teams at the same time, and you were integrating in as a newer person on the team. And what was cool was watching your influence on their long-term vision and how design can actually impact what they could do, and in turn how they could impact projects, people, and communities. So I thought that was neat. But Brent, on the other hand, they were, I think, nearly $1 billion business unit at the time, and our goal was to help them get them to 2. And man, they are well on their way to that.
They're well on their way.
Yeah. It's interesting because Brent has a tendency to hire really hard-working, high performers, right? Which is obviously mission critical. And you look at Ayanna and the culture she has, all within JE Dunn, all within living a purpose, guiding principles and vision. She has a different team with a different culture. Yeah. And I would say that they're servant leadership, community service-minded people first.
Yep.
High performers second. That's maybe a cool way to talk about those two teams.
Yeah, very different balance. And Brent, to your point of hard charging, I think he called me the second day I was at JE Dunn to say, hey, I'm Brent. I want to incorporate design into what my group is doing. Can we set up a call? Like, all right, who is this guy? Yeah. And we found a really strong leader that fits his team, that is on the front lines, helping to design projects that we're building and leading that in-house. Yeah. Ayanna's team they have to work through others much more. They are not the team that is mobilized and the operators that are building the projects. Mm-hmm. They need to be able to coach and work with our project teams to deliver projects around the country. Mm-hmm. So it's almost a leadership team that supplements and then enables a local team to deliver the project. Mm-hmm. But she's in a very different part of the business of it's a national practice. Mm-hmm. There are national relationships that are there. You do need that visible face of leadership and consistency of that to resonate with those clients. Mm-hmm. And so it needs to be crafted in a very different way. Yeah. And it was fantastic to work with you in that strategy session because it was like a yin and yang, kind of both sides, and how they learned from each other in crafting what their vision was. That played off incredibly well. Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. When you and I were in some of those meetings, I kept telling you that the whole objective is to allow this leader and this team to figure out their own way of living out the purpose and understanding how what they're doing is contributing to that greater vision that JE Dunn has. And I remember me and you kind of joking and talking about it is crazy how differently these two leaders are leading their teams, but totally living out the purpose. Yeah, totally fit. It was their, and they are allowed to color that the way that it's meaningful for them and for their team and for how their clients work. Yeah. And I love that there's that individual or their group identity and interpretation of that still is consistent with kind of the bigger overall goal and vision that we have as a company. That's what makes it like this incredible variety of groups and people and types of projects to work with that makes it a challenge at times, but also creates all these opportunities that gets me excited every day about being here. Oh, I bet. So in this segment, we're getting down to kind of the second stage of a career. So past the schooling, past the internship, you're really kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of your career, which is really where you start to explore what you're passionate about, what you love to do, what you don't love to do, right? The types of cultures that you want to work in. And I'm excited for you to explain your journey to us to learn more about the different options that people have and how you made decisions and made turns. But I wanted to take a little extra time on that last piece about Ayanna and Brent because JE Dunn's a large company. There's a lot of large companies. And the differences between those two leaders is significant. Completely different leadership styles, completely different industry sectors and client types, completely different employee experience for those two. But both of those leaders are underneath JE Dunn, right? Living out the purpose and vision. So it's really important as you get to know these different companies that you meet along the way and you get to spend some time with to really understand the different groups and different teams and how cultures are different and how the leaders are actually setting the tone and driving those cultures. Well, and if you're thinking about a career opportunity within our company, it's good to know that there are a variety of different types of leaders, different focuses on how they are delivering their services that allow you to explore a path that it's like, well, if you're not liking what you're working on right now, or if you're burned out in what you're doing, do I need to leave this organization and go somewhere? No, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Here, there are a lot of there's different parts of the country to work in. There's different groups, different building types, all of that allow you to explore that career path without having to forge away from something. If you know that it's a culture that fits you, it creates those opportunities that give you one place to explore that and find what the right fit is.
Great point. Great point. So getting into your career and your journey, again, giving us a snapshot over an 8-minute period. I know it takes a lot of years and compresses it down, but what I want to be able to paint the picture of is you did something that we talk a whole lot about. You didn't make the companies that you worked in your identity. When I think about your journey, you were always who you were and who you are. You just saw those organizations and places as a place for you to stop on your career journey and have a significant contribution. You didn't get wrapped up into that company being your identity. I think that happens a lot in our career. So if you would just kind of over the next 6-7 minutes, give us a snapshot of some of the stops that you made along the way on your journey.
So I started my career as a sports architect, coming out of school and worked on a lot of large, exciting stadium projects, which is kind of what I wanted to do. It was a building type of project type that I was interested in, but it's leaving a legacy. So when you work on a project, like if you work on one of these office buildings or a parking garage or whatever around here, that means something to this neighborhood, and some people may know. When you work on an airport or you work on a stadium and it's on Monday Night Football, and everybody knows what that project is, there is a little bit of ego that's fed there as an architect of like, oh, people know what I've worked on, and can appreciate that. So that was intoxicating. It was also exhausting. Yeah. You're working on one, a $500 million, $1 billion project, huge team to work with, which you understand what that level of effort is to work within that team, but they are 3-4 year long projects. And so I felt like I was working on just one thing over a long period of time, and you're anxious in your career to what are the next steps? What does that look like? So after about 3 or 4 years of doing that, I had 2 partners that I worked with that were interested in breaking away and starting their own firm.
Oh, okay.
And doing something very, very different, which was more custom residential, commercial tenant finish, design build, but architect-led, not contractor-led. One of the partners had done something similar working for a small firm in Phoenix. And he had come back to Kansas City. He had gone to KU, came back to Kansas City, tried working for a big firm, and was like, no, I need to go back to what I was doing. So he was breaking out to do that. So the 2 of them were going to start, and they offered me an opportunity. Hey, do you want to join and be a partner with this? I was never one of those architects in school that was wearing the black cape and the round glasses, and I'm going to have my name on whatever, I'm going to be Frank Lloyd Wright or Frank Gehry or whoever. I do not have that ego, and I didn't have that interest. I knew I wanted to work with a team, but there was part of me that was like, man, if they go on to be wildly successful and have this great career, how much am I going to regret not taking that opportunity and not exploring that? And while I never wanted to do that on my own, I would do it with partners. I would do it with other people that I trust. And so I made the decision, along with my wife, and we didn't have any kids at the time, and we agreed that she could help support starting a small business. Like I went on her insurance, all of that. Like it was a partnership to make that decision. But we made the decision that I would leave and join them and start our own firm. I had a leader at the time, the firm that I was working with, that I went to say, hey, I'm going to go take this opportunity. She had her own firm, a small firm, before she came to the bigger firm that we were working with. And she said, Chris, I can't give you that same experience of running a small business, running those kind of projects here, but I want you to go do that, be successful.
Wow.
And when you come back to us, you'll be that much better for the experience.
Wow.
And I was like, whatever. I was appreciative, but B, I was like, whatever, and never coming back. We're gonna grow so big that we'll buy this firm. That kind of thing of didn't know what we didn't know. Kind of thing. And so did that for about 7 years, 8 years. Had our own firm. I went from being part of a team to there were 3 of us. We each had our own projects, and we did everything on the project. So we won the work, wrote the contract, did the design, sent the invoices, did the insurance, pulled the permits, bid it out. I mean, it was the whole thing.
Yeah.
I learned really how to be an architect by that, because I knew how to be a project manager and be a designer. But drawing all of the details, I had other people that did that.
Yeah.
So I learned how to be an architect, and got my license, my architecture license. But I also feel like I got an MBA. I learned how to run a small business. I learned how to manage clients. I learned how to make the business decisions, when we were going to hire, invest, all of that. All of that was compressed in that experience.
Wow.
I would say I had a career path that, if I had continued where I was in a good position, and I would have grown on, a steady trajectory. But doing this and taking that opportunity took me to a whole other place that I would have been successful and happy with that career, but it put me in a position to have other opportunities by doing that. But I will say it took a leader that gave me the freedom to walk away and not feel like I burned any bridges when I left.
Good point.
And then I had family support and had a network of others that invested in me.
Yeah.
Fast forward, we get through the last big recession. We kept our doors open. It helped that we were doing construction and design.
Yeah.
And we got to a place about 2010 that the firm that I was working at reached out to me about coming back. They had won a large federal project just outside of Kansas City, massive at the time for where the market was. JE Dunn was going to be the contractor for it. They had a number of buildings, and they needed team leaders for those buildings, and they reached out to me to come back. So at the time, we had grown our business. We had gotten to about 12 people at our peak, but we had not pulled out of that. We were still putting money back into the business. We were successful. We were not doing it for free. Don't get me wrong. But we weren't exactly doing what we should have financially, and hadn't grown the way that we had wanted. And so it was a really good opportunity. And I sat down with my business partner and was like, "Hey, I've got this opportunity. What are we going to do?" And he knew where we were in the business. He's like, "If you don't take this opportunity, then I'm going to kick you out." Incredibly supportive. He knew we had 2 kids at that point, so we had grown our family. We needed to look at what the right opportunity was to support that, and it was an opportunity that was really worth exploring and going back. When I thought about working for a big firm again, I could have gone to any number of firms in Kansas City and would have started at the ground level again, and kind of introducing myself and who I was. Going back to where I was before, I knew those leaders. Those leaders were in even higher leadership positions. They knew me. They trusted me. That network and those relationships made it good to go back, because I knew I had people in my corner. The other thing I will say is I got incredible advice when I went back of, don't go back into sports. We want you to work on this project. You were a designer at this point. You're part of a leadership team here. You need to be a different person. You need to be viewed differently and not fall back to where you were if you want to grow on this career path. And it turned out to be an incredibly valuable experience for me. I wound up eventually being an office leader for the Kansas City office. That grew a couple of years later to about 2.5 years later to be the national practice leader over all of the architecture offices within the firm, which was an incredible opportunity. And it was one of those opportunities that I don't know I was necessarily looking for, but opened up for me, and I felt like I had the support within that company and within the leadership to take that on. They had a vision for where I could go. Learned a lot of lessons along the way, but I really relied on that experience I had of, look, if I could do this on my own with no support, I definitely can take on a bigger challenge here in leading this practice because I have all of this support around me to do that. And that gave me the faith to be able to do that.
Well, okay, so I'm going to summarize. You're giving folks a lot of gold nuggets to work with, so I'm going to restate a few things. One of the things I love about your story that I'm hoping that you're picking up as well, either if you're looking to design your own career and your own path, or if you're trying to help somebody navigate or design their path, a couple things that Chris just communicated I think are really important. Number one, he took on opportunities that somewhat were risky, but in those opportunities, he learned things that a lot of people that I see and I'm around, they don't learn. And couple here, I'll give you a few. One is you obviously learned the practice of architecture and you learned the practice of construction, right?
Yes.
But on top of that, you clearly learned, and not many people do, the business of architecture and the business of construction. That is not intentionally taught in many firms at all. Huge opportunity if you are a mentor, an existing manager, an executive or owner, and you're wanting to develop some talent, teach them the business side of the construction or architecture, design, engineering is huge. The third thing that you mentioned I think is really important is you learned different project delivery methods that you liked. Right?
Yes.
You got into different project types that you liked, and you got into what it takes to actually engage, inspire, motivate, and keep a client on track, right?
Yep.
Again, the practice of architecture, the practice of construction, those things are important. But if we don't get into teaching people the business side, managing clients, setting expectations, and project delivery alternatives, you just aren't getting a holistic person.
Right.
But in organizations who have a get work, do work mentality, those things aren't taught. So if you're in one of those cultures, be the pioneer and bust through some of those serious barriers to help better develop people and make them more rounded. Because I guarantee you, the return for you is going to be a great feeling and a much better team. But the return for them is a significantly more valuable toolbox for them to apply to you, your team, your clients, and your organization. So thanks for that insight there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking through kind of the middle segment of Chris's career. If you're in that spot, say between 25 and maybe 40, those are some things that we would really encourage you to think about. If you're an executive or a manager and you're leading people in a team that has great talent and great people that are in that zone, make sure you're hitting some of those things. And I'm telling you, the people right now in 2025 that are in that zone, they want consistent feedback. When they screw something up, tell them. They want to be able to move from one place to the other in their career. And the quicker you're able to equip them, help them to clarify the journey, help them to clearly understand what they need to master along the way, the better off you're going to be and the better off they're going to be. And we're not going to have to worry about how do we replace these people game, right?
Right.
So something to think about there. Would really encourage you. Again, this is not standard practice. This takes courage. It's not comfortable. And it even goes oftentimes against what you think they want from you. The truth is they want it. They just don't know how to ask for it. So we would encourage you. Chris has done this. I've done this. We're asking you to do this. Take the time, invest into them, and lead them because they need you.